Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dark Side of Dimensions. A film that I never thought the fandom would get to see. For years, there was a clamoring for a return to form for the franchise, as well as of the original cast. And after all the changes that were made to the card game, such as pendulum summoning or XYZ summoning, this franchise was in desperate need of a back-to-basics approach. And they struck gold here, delivering a compelling epilogue story following the events of the original series. As always, there's going to be a dub review first, followed by my subbed one later down the line, but I wanted to take a moment before we get into the story itself to highlight just how monumental this was for fans of the original series. This was the first teaser released for the movie. Suffice to say, I was hooked immediately. This is awesome! First, let's go through the production history, taken straight from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Wiki page, followed by the redesigns of the character models. Alright, let's go on ahead and go through this production history here, taken straight from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Wiki page. The link's going to be in the description below for anyone who wants to check it out. So, development. An early version of the script featured a scene where Taya grew impatient with Yugi, who was obsessing over cards. The scene was eventually cut. Kazuki Takahashi later published an illustration of it on his Instagram. Promotion. The film was announced in the West before it was in Japan. 4K Media revealed the film's existence on the official Yu-Gi-Oh! Website. They teased that the movie was already in development in Japan, and that they were shopping for a distributor in all non-Asian territories. In Japan, the Maneki Shimbun newspaper's Meidagai TV streamed a video teasing the film, alongside a recap of the history of the nearly 20-year franchise. Here, it was revealed that the film would feature Yugi Moto and Seto Kaiba as its main protagonists. Shueisha's Weekly Shonen Jump also unveiled a synopsis of the movie. Quote, Dark Yugi and Kaiba have clashed many times. Dark Yugi, who resides in Yugi Moto's body, and Kaiba will have a duel that bets their prides and accepts each other's mutual experience. The 47th issue of Weekly Shonen Jump unveiled two new monsters that will be played by Yugi, Lemon Magician Girl and Apple Magician Girl, and specified that Dark Magician Girl will also be appearing. Clear Kuribo was also revealed, but its name was not announced. And then, here's the design. So, a number of characters and elements are given redesigns by Kazuki Takahashi, as well as new ones being introduced. Yugi Moto. He was drawn to look more mature, and to show he inherited Dark Yugi's strength. Now, I think that's really evident in the film, but you'll get more of that in the actual review itself once this part's done. Seto Kaiba. His expressions are closer to the more sinister look that he had when he was first introduced. Joey Wheeler. Joey's expression reflects the maturity he gained from his battles in the original story. As a favorite of Takahashi, he paid particular attention to giving him a nice face. Nice, nice. Even the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! is nice to Joey. But anyway. Tristan Taylor. Tristan has a much calmer expression. Taya Gardner. Taya continued her career as a dancer after the original story. Takahashi considered this to be Taya at her cutest. Bakura. Takahashi considered Bakura to be the most mysterious and consequently the least changed out of the major characters. He, however, now has a smoother haircut and a long-sleeved shirt underneath his t-shirt. This might actually explain a point later on in the review, but let's go over it. Dual Disc. The new and improved Dual Disc, developed by Kaiba Corporation, creates solid vision holograms from the user's imagination. Upon closer observation, there doesn't appear to be a hole to serve as the graveyard. So, you're gonna get more of my thoughts on this Dual Disc later on in the review, but I still stand by those points, even with this explanation. Anyway, back to the review! So, from the models, you can tell that this is going to be more in line with the original source material, especially since Takahashi, from what I've heard, actually contributed to the movie's script and screenplay. Finally, let's go over the dub changes. They're actually pretty minimal. I would have expected 4Kids to crop the top and bottom of the cards, much like they did in the original show. But here, they actually don't. Unfortunately, this has a knock-on effect of them not translating the card names and simply leaving them on screen in Japanese. What, did they run out of time? Were they short-staffed in terms of localization over at 4K Media? But that can't be the case since the script was clearly translated by someone during the localization process. We're probably never gonna know the full story. Speaking of stories, you like that segue? I think it's time to dive right into the one that this movie offers. Here we go. The film begins with an excavation crew at a site, and it looks like they're looking for something really important. In fact, Mokuba claims that they'll find, quote, it, adding a layer of mystery to the proceedings. We then cut to Yugi leaving his grandfather's home. Oh, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Maddie Blostein, the original English voice actress for Solomon, tragically passed away of an unknown illness in 2008, resulting in Wayne Grayson taking over as the character here. So that's kind of a bummer. Anyway, the film then cuts to some establishing shots, like Joey biking to school, only to get dunked with a bucket of water. My favorite one, though, would have to be the fangirls swooning over Bakura. It's a really nice touch, and it's also kinda cool to see Ryo get the spotlight for once, as opposed to Yami Bakura. There's some really good banter between Joey and Tristan, along with some more development for the original cast, when they talk about their goals for after their graduation. Wait a minute! Graduation? So, you're telling me that the entire original series, the cast were all sophomores in high school? But one of the guidebooks, I can't really think of which one, I know I had it, but I couldn't really find it in time for this review, as well as the official Yu-Gi-Oh! Wiki page, state that Yugi is a 16-year-old high school freshman. But that can't be right, considering that Duel Monsters, if we're getting technical, takes a total of 5 years. Meaning that in order for this to line up, the characters would need to be 8th grade. Or they would have had to be held back a year at the beginning of Duelist Kingdom in order for the numbering here to make sense, and to line up with the timeline. Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything? That's another challenge for you. But I digress. The group enter their classroom, and we meet someone. This is Aigami, the main antagonist of the film, who was voiced wonderfully by Daniel J. Edwards. To be honest, I really like him. As we'll see later, he has an interesting backstory. But for now, this is a good introduction, with him just sitting casually staring out the window. We get some more insight into what Yugi is thinking about with a pleasant exchange on a bridge between him, Joey, and Taya. Yugi can't really stop thinking about Atem, and while at first I thought that was detrimental to the character in this film, following some reflection, it actually makes a lot of sense. Remember, in the original series, Yugi and Atem were together for a long time. And when they were separated, Yugi didn't know how or even if he'd be able to move on with his life. In fact, Yugi actually sums it up beautifully here.
Not just sometimes, all the time. It's just that things ended so suddenly between us. You used to be a part of me. But then you weren't, and we had to face each other in a duel. A duel to determine whether I was ready to stand on my own. And when I defeated you, you left us. You left me. Forever. I know it was for the best, but I wish I just had one more chance to let him know what he meant to me. But destiny had different plans for us.
Joey saves Aigami from a mugging, only for him to meet the bullies responsible at an old factory. Aigami proceeds to intimidate the bullies, states that they must vanish, and pulls out a CGI cube, followed by the bullies disintegrating into particle dust. This just adds to the mystery. Where did Aigami come from? What's with that cube? Who were those people that showed up when it was pulled out? Great stuff so far. The film then cuts to Seto facing off against Atem in a virtual duel. Now, at first glance, this isn't anything new. After all, we've seen these guys square off against each other numerous times throughout the original series. But, much like their other encounters throughout the original series, this one adds to the characterization, particularly Seto, and Eric Stewart, who, might I add, makes a welcome return for Seto's character, knocks it out of the park, as he shows us how obsessed Seto has become with dueling Atem one final time.
Pharaoh, you don't know how long I've been waiting to battle you. The things I've had to do to make it possible. But for me, there never was a choice. After all, my scars of defeat run deep, Pharaoh. Scars you inflicted upon me. And though they may never go away, something can be done to make them easier to live with. Inflict upon your enemy an even greater wound. A defeat so resounding it leaves their soul completely crushed. You're the closest I've ever had to a worthy adversary. But you aren't worthy, and I'm finally going to prove it.
However, here's where one of my nitpicks comes in. It's very minor, but it has something to do with the presentation of the duel itself. Don't get me wrong, the duel works completely fine. In fact, I welcome it. But why does Seto have such an advanced duel disc? I thought this was taking place shortly after the conclusion of Duel Monsters. Plus, Atem still uses the standard duel disc. Not only that, but if Seto was able to create such advanced technology, then why isn't the same tech being used in GX? Which chronologically takes place a generation after the conclusion of Duel Monsters and thus this movie, retroactively. If that's the case, then we'd actually be going backwards in terms of the dueling tech. Since GX, and to a lesser extent Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, both used the traditional dueling model showcased in the original series, with the standardized duel discs. Don't get me wrong, I know why this is happening from a production standpoint. It wouldn't have been much fun if the audience saw another standard duel presented to them between Yugi and Seto, since that's pretty much all they got in the original show. So the producers felt that it was necessary to do this with Seto's dueling tech. But, to me anyway, it's a little too virtual for this time period, considering what comes after this film in terms of the timeline. Anyway, Seto converses with some technicians, leading to this wonderful monologue, and it shows us just how much darker this Seto is when compared to the original.
It's true. I went to a great deal of trouble recreating the Pharaoh's deck, strategies, even his perfectly coiffed hair. In fact, that part is what took the longest. But still, it wasn't the real Pharaoh, so I didn't really beat him. And until I do, my scars of defeat will continue to burn. Fire whoever designed that bottle. Kaiba Corp's products shouldn't bend that easily.
Yes, understood.
Mokuba contacts Seto, informing him that they found, quote, it, and it's revealed that they've located the pieces of the Millennium Puzzle. Ha! Call back to Dungeon Dice Monsters! I love it!
Wheeler, I've told you! No clowning around here! This job isn't a joke!
Dude, Joey's not the one here with the clown nose. We get some more insight into who exactly Aigami is. It's a little snippet, but it's still really nice. The gist of it is that Aigami is in front of these pillars, talking about how he's going to avenge someone named Shin by killing Yugi, since he believes that Yugi is the one responsible for Shin's demise. We cut to a desert, where Mokuba, Roland, and a few other guards are waiting. Seto's Blue Eyes White Jet comes roaring in. But it's in complete silence. Missed opportunity, 4K Media, come on! There needed to be some music placed in here, to increase the epicness of the scene. Here, let me try.
I'm making my move, so just step aside. No one can say I never tried to do everything to get back my pride.
That's not too bad. At least I don't think it is. Seto arrives at the location where the puzzle is, and he seems to know about this area. The location is actually the place where Yugi and Atem dueled each other during the ceremonial battle. There's one problem with this, though. Since this film is supposed to take place after the manga's ending, Seto shouldn't know about this place. See, in the original manga, Seto wasn't present for the ceremonial battle. That was an anime-exclusive element. But since this is supposed to be the manga's version of Seto we're watching here, he obviously shouldn't know anything about this place since he was never at it. Also, Seto calls Aigami out since he's eavesdropping on the situation. Now that I don't mind, since Seto must have seen Aigami around town at some point. But what doesn't make any sense is how he knows Aigami's true name, Diva. How does Seto know this? Even if he does believe in the magic aspects of the series now, that still wouldn't mean that he knows who Aigami really is. Don't get me wrong, it works, and it is cool how casually Aigami walks out from the crowd and reveals himself. Speaking of, though, this leads straight into another duel, this time between Seto and Aigami for the Millennium Puzzle, and it's pretty intense all things considered. There's a new summoning method introduced, called Dimension Summoning. Honestly, it's an interesting method of summoning since it adds the spiritual aspect to it. Speaking of monsters, how many variations of the Blue Eyes type of card does Seto Kaiba have? I mean, I get that it's his go-to card, probably his most iconic form of card, but still, at least Atem used more than just the Dark Magician in his duels. Seto throws pretty much everything he has at Aigami, but it doesn't work. However, Seto pulls out a Whopper, an Egyptian god-sized one, by summoning Obelisk the Tormentor. Stop! How does Seto have Obelisk in his deck again? I thought Yugi had all 3 Egyptian god cards at the end of the original series. And Aigami even states that after Atem went to the spirit world, the Egyptian god cards also left, meaning they would have ceased to exist altogether. I mean, maybe Obelisk sensed Seto's plight and decided to help him? But that doesn't make any sense though, since Obelisk was never shown capable of doing that before. But it is a really cool shot, one where I think the reliance on CGI actually works to the film's benefit, showing off just how powerful Obelisk is. And it makes for one heck of a return. Seto activates Obelisk's special ability, and he strikes back with an amazing line read by Eric.
Obelisk's ability! By destroying all of my monsters, you take damage equal to Obelisk's attack points!
But your monster can't use its abilities!
It's no monster. It's a god! Attack with Fist of Fury!
This is also the first mention of God in a 4Kids dub, which I was really shocked by, considering how scared the executives were during the original series run back in the early 2000s. But that's a topic for another video. Anyway, Seto evens the playing field with Aigami. But in the chaos, Agami steals a piece of the Millennium Puzzle and escapes. We cut to a rehearsal, where Yugi is practicing his graduation speech. Agami is waiting in the back, and he actually reveals some of his true plan: to kill Yugi before the Millennium Puzzle is completed, and thus stopping Atem's return. This doesn't make any sense considering that he stole a piece of the puzzle in the previous scene. But whatever. At least we get to see more of his motivation, and that's always a plus. Also, Seto managed to complete a fully functional space station within a few months. I don't care how rich you are, you wouldn't be able to build from scratch an entire space station fully operational within a few months' time. It simply doesn't happen. On a lighter note, does this mean that Seto Kaiba faked the moon landing? I guess this does symbolize one thing though. Seto has one massively overinflated ego. Seto reaches the space station, where he places the pieces of the Millennium Puzzle into a machine, which begins reassembling the puzzle itself. We cut to Yugi, who's assembling a deck, and he's greeted by Sarah, Agami's sister, who exposits about the Plana and what they're all about.
I know, Yugi. I know of the Pharaoh because of my master, Master Shin. Shoddy Shin. Not long ago, Master Shin bestowed on myself and others a great power. The power of the Plana. This power is so strong it can remake this world. Turn it into someplace beautiful. A utopia. But if misused, this power could do the opposite.
Where are we?
This is the gathering place of the Plana.
Plana?
We are the ones who carry on the will of Master Shin. But there is dissension among us, and it could mean trouble for all of mankind. I have no one else to turn to other than you, Yugi.
Who are you?
I am Sarah. Destiny has led me to you, so I shall entrust you with my destiny.
Back at the Kaiba station, I know, best nickname you've ever heard, 10 out of 10, best name ever. The puzzle is almost complete, but Seto realizes that Agami took the final piece. It's at this point that DSOD, which I think is doing great by the way, starts to go a little sideways, if you will. It starts with Bakura expositing his backstory, which is fine by itself, but then it gets kinda bad. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get back on track before I lose it. Agami sends Joey into another dimension. Said other dimension consists of Joey being completely transparent, with nobody being able to see or hear him, which Agami states is a dimension comprised entirely of Joey's thoughts. Agami states his plan for Joey, and as far as 4Kids dubs go, this is pretty dark.
You're a fool, Joey. Do you really think you can win a battle of wills with me? No one here knows you exist. And as we speak, I will erase these memories one by one. Every face you've seen, every day you've known, terminated. And since a man is nothing without his memories, once they're all gone, you'll be gone too. Farewell.
Back in reality, Agami torments Bakura, who's trying to resist, and we get to see the rest of Agami's backstory.
You are mistaken. The Millennium Ring is not an object one can possess. It possesses you. It has powers that even I do not fully understand. Great and terrible powers.
So I do not care! I've been searching for this my whole life! Please, sir!
It is not my place to interfere with what destiny has in store. You've been warned. But if you still want the ring, it's yours.
Yes, I want it! What must I do?
Go take the ring and place it around your neck.
Yes. It feels amazing! Like nothing I've ever experienced!
Oh no! Are you all right?
Shoddy, your services will no longer be required! Now be gone, old man!
Oh, Master Shin! Master Shin!
Are you okay? Say something.
Remember, young ones, do not give in to your fears. Do not give in to hate.
Hold on, Master Shin. Please hold on.
Diva, take this. When the time comes, use it to wield the power of the Plana. You must carry it now, for my time in this world is complete.
So, Aigami is upset because of what Yami Bakura did to Shoddy. Got it. On board 100% with it. It's an awesome motive. But where does Atem come into this? Aigami does realize that Atem and Yami Bakura are two completely separate people, doesn't he? But wait, it gets worse! One of Aigami's friends, Manny, comes up and grabs Bakura, which again is alright, but then the Millennium Ring appears, and it turns out that the evil spirit of the ring, as in Yami Bakura, took over Manny. There are so many things wrong here, but I'm just gonna boil it down to 2 words. Pharaoh's memories. Does anyone remember that? You know, when Zork necrophades, and by extension Yami Bakura himself, were both wiped from existence? So how is he back all of a sudden? It doesn't make any sense. Bakura was wiped out by the creator of light, the most powerful being within the Yu-Gi-Oh mythology. So this just comes right the heck out of nowhere. It's like what they did with Emperor Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker. His return is pointless because he's already served his purpose in the storyline. And for Yami Bakura, this completely negates the impact of seeing him taken down in Pharaoh's memories if you know he's gonna come back a decade later in a feature film. Which ironically enough is also the case with Palpatine. Only in his case, the wait spans over 3 decades, which is just unnecessary. This right here is one of the film's biggest failings. The fact that it drags Yami Bakura out of mothballs and brings him back into the spotlight after he'd already served his purpose in it. Anyway, following a complicated sequence of events, Yugi and the others show up, and they discover Aigami's true identity as Diva, along with a ton of other people and spirits surrounding them. I'm actually fine with this, and the added spirits really add to the gravitas of the situation. Diva, I'm gonna start calling him that from here on, states that Yugi and the others are going to join Joey in the other dimension. And that joining him there, or death, is the ultimate fate of those who stand in the way of Diva's goal. Diva then states that once he banishes Yugi, whom he amply calls the, quote, vessel of the Pharaoh, Diva's goal will be absolute. Okay, I know I don't usually mention the voice acting until the conclusion, but I have to give massive props to Edwards in this scene in particular. Don't get me wrong, he's a blast to watch throughout this entire film, but once Diva's true identity is revealed, Edwards completely pulls back the curtain, much like Ted Lewis did with Yami Bakura during Pharaoh's memories. Now, Edwards doesn't really go over the top with it like Lewis did, but that's just because of how his character's written. Diva isn't evil for the sake of being evil. He is not the ultimate source of evil itself, like Yami Bakura was. Diva's simply a guy with a compelling motivation and goal. Granted, it's a goal that I, as a viewer, obviously don't want to see come to pass, but the character himself is compelling nonetheless. If you enjoyed the content, please like the video, share it, subscribe if you wish, and come back later for part 2. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless.